Hey everybody, this is Erica, the technology nerd who likes to film stuff, and it's finally time for part 2, the final part of the HTC One M8 review. A lot of you are probably watching this right now scoffing at me. Oh, that phone, it's so old compared to everything else out on the market now. Come on now. This is still a very good prime class phone right here, and yes, my schedule got really crazy. I went to France for a little bit of time, as a lot of you probably know, and I got this device and I got all those devices, and it's just been really crazy. So bear with me. This is part 2, and I hope you guys enjoy it. So the first thing that I want to point out on this device is the awesome stereo speakers on here. I have to just admit that I am not someone who likes wearing earphones. They tend to bother my ears. Anything that's on my ears, in my ears, around my ears tends to make my ears red. It makes me severely uncomfortable. So it's important for me to have a device that has decent sound. And I'm noticing as social media is just taking over the world that I am watching a lot more content on my phones, on my tablets. I'm usually not watching much on a television anymore. So heck yeah, it's important to have decent sound coming through a phone. I hear a lot of people arguing, yeah, but I don't need that. Well, that's great for you, but people who like watching content are really going to appreciate these speakers. And also it's really nice because I'm someone who doesn't like to wear earphones. If I'm in a crowded room or somewhere that's not so quiet, I can still hear the phone just fine. HTC claims that these speakers are 25% louder than what was on the M7 last year. And I have to admit that even though, yes, I was listening to the M7, and I can see that it's a little bit quieter, yes, but I did like the sound of those speakers better. They sounded more warm, more full to me, more balanced. I'm noticing that's because HTC has really boosted the treble this time around. And it ends up making treble frequencies sound kind of harsh. I wouldn't exactly say tinny, but almost reminiscent of that. It becomes a little bit tiring on my ears after a while. I really wish that I could turn off the boom sound equalization. But unfortunately, that's something that we're not able to do like we could on the M7. Although honestly, on the M7, when you turned off Beats audio, the speakers just sounded terrible. So I can understand why HTC made this particular decision. But still, these stereo speakers create a type of atmosphere and environment. They do feel like stereo speakers, even though they're small and not too far apart. So I definitely appreciate them. Now, as for plugging in headphones, what I like is that this device is able to drive pretty much any pair of headphones out there. I've seen someone say that they were able to drive their 600 ohm earphones, still able to get a reasonable volume. So I know a lot of people are really going to appreciate that. One thing that I'm noticing is that when I turn up the volume really high, I can hear some popping, some crackling, some distortion. Once I turn down the volume a little bit, I don't hear it anymore. That's something that I'm seeing as a common problem. But with my little in-ear buds, I had to jack up the volume all the way until I needed to actually take them out of my ears to get that crackling to happen. So I'm assuming that's something that people might experience more when they have over-ear headphones. Unless you're someone who just likes to blast the hell out of your ears with those in-ear headphones, you get the point. If you turn down the volume, I don't tend to hear that problem anymore. Now, as for the boom sound settings, while I think that the boom sound equalization or whatever it is that they're doing sounds okay for the front-facing speakers, I would really turn it off when you were listening to it over earphones, because what I notice is that they're boosting the bass, they're lowering the mids, and then they are also boosting the treble. So you've got this V shape, and it's pretty apparent. It sounds pretty bad. It ruins everything that I've listened to thus far. I'm sure some people will like the effect, but if you care about the quality sound of your music, I would definitely keep it off. When the boom sound equalization is off, the frequency response is not that bad at all. It's actually a pretty decent sounding phone, all things considered. The best thing has got to be that I just don't miss notifications anymore. This thing is so loud. It just loves my Zelda ringtone. I can't play it on here because, copyright infringement and other issues. But yes, I just simply don't miss notifications. The sound is very loud through both speakers. I mentioned both speakers because the Xperia Z2 only seems to have the speaker on the bottom putting out sound, and that just ruins the experience. So speakerphone is both speakers. It's very loud, and you will seldom miss a notification anymore. Now getting into performance, you can see that if we go underneath developer options, that there is a mode that's called high performance mode, maximize CPU performance. And HTC took a really big hit in the benchmark realm for having the ability to have higher performance in benchmarks. It did show. They did admit to it and said that actually you can go in and disable or enable high performance at any time that you'd like to. And that's just what I'm able to do here. But I don't really care so much for synthetic benchmarks. What I really care about is real-world performance. And even without that special mode on, I can say that the HTC One M8 is the most responsive and smooth device, Android device, that I've ever had. It's what makes it such a pleasure to use, is that I'm not having crazy amount of frame drops here and there. That's something that I'm seeing with Samsung devices. They just can't get their launcher smooth. And the poor LG G3 just has that Quad HD display and so many pixels to push around that sometimes I see that it has a little bit less performance than 1080p devices. So the M8 definitely takes the cake. Things are quick, things are responsive. What I like to begin with is that the animations are very minimal, so I don't see issues with opening apps and closing apps to begin with. It is nice that even though the animations are minimal, it's not jarring in any way. Even with blink feed, they've done it right. It looks like it's a smooth 60 frames per second. You can just see that it so slowly and smoothly moves. And just that makes blink feed usable. It makes me want to use it. So I definitely have to give HTC props for just how smooth this device performs. In terms of GPU performance and gameplay, it's just as good as the other S801 devices out on the market right now. These days I find it pretty hard, at least with 1080p displays, to complain about the game performance because they're all relatively smooth. My biggest complaint though is when playing for 15 minutes, a half hour of a high graphics game like Asphalt 8, I notice that this device gets really hot. At one time, I played Asphalt 8 for 45 minutes and this thing was completely boiling hot. So I noticed during the day when using the phone a lot, doing a lot of tasks, browsing the internet on 4G LTE, using GPS navigation, just really out and about using the device, I noticed that it does get pretty hot. And of course that is due to the fact that it's got an aluminum body. The metal pulls the heat away from the system, which is actually a good thing. But to my hands, it's really not so pleasant, and I find myself putting it inside of a case that makes it a lot easier to handle for me. If you're not using it a lot, not doing intensive tasks, then you probably won't notice it heat up more than just being a little bit warm. But that's something to take into consideration whenever you have a phone that's made out of metal. If your hands are prone to moisture, this easily becomes the sweatiest phone ever. And that glamorous metal brushed appearance ends up not looking so pretty anymore. So yeah, cases are a good thing. Fingerprints. So moving on to the Duo camera on the back. This is something that has caused a lot of controversy, especially because it really has not changed since the M7 from last year. Many were hoping to see much better specs here, but unfortunately, it's really the same thing. It looks like HTC was trying to find something to stand out, something to differentiate themselves. So really, the only thing that they have added is this depth perception sensor. So you've got a 4 megapixel ultra pixel camera where the pixels are simply just bigger. Argument being that they can collect more light. And then you've got this depth perception camera. It's collecting data to sense how close things are. And all of that wraps up into the neat software package, which is really quite gimmicky, that allows certain things to look blurred and allows certain other effects that HTC has added into here. Now, unfortunately, in order to have this Duo camera depth perception function properly, HTC had to remove the optical image stabilization. At least that is one of the arguments I'm hearing. And I find this to be quite a bit of a bummer because that was the one thing that made this camera actually worth it. Because as a video camera on the M7, it really did not perform that bad, but now all you have is just some software stabilization that's only clearly working underneath photos. The software image stabilization does not work in videos whatsoever, so you are stuck with just no image stabilization, optical or digital. And that has been the major downfall for me with this camera. At the very least, I'm happy to see that this is one of the nicest camera interfaces that I have ever seen. So at least HTC has that. This is a very fun camera to use. I'm just going to go around some of the things in the interface. So right here you've got the ability to deal with the flash auto on off. You've got a settings tab down here. You can see if you click on auto, you've got many different presets. So this would be the auto mode. Then you've also got a night mode. You've got your HDR mode. You've got a sweep panorama, anti-shake. You've got a full manual mode. You've got a portrait mode. You've got a landscape mode. You can pull to the side here. You've got backlight, text, and macro. And you can see you can deal with ISO settings, you can deal with the exposure compensation, auto white balance, and you've also got some effects here as well. So you can see that these are some filters. Looks very similar to what we had on the M7 in terms of the filters. And then we've got an extra settings tab where you control other things. You've got a makeup level for like a beauty face type thing, smooths out blemishes and such. Here you can mess with contrast, saturation, sharpness. You can deal with the crop. There's something to say about crop. When I show you the duo camera stuff, the stuff that you can do to mess with the depth of field, you need to keep things underneath wide. This is the normal crop. This is how the sensor is naturally. Because when you go to 4.3 or you go to 1.1, you're not going to be able to use those effects anymore. For some reason, when they're cropped, you can no longer use that depth information to do anything with the photo. You can do edits and things like that, but you can't use the depth information. You've got the ability to adjust the grid, geotag photos. You can choose review duration, timer, SD card, continuous shooting. You've got other things for camera options, so it can detect your smile. There's a lot of settings here. There's just a ton of stuff. You can control what the buttons do for capture and zoom. And you can also do something that's actually quite nice. That's called Save Custom Camera. Now, I've been a bit frustrated because in order to take good pictures, sometimes you really do need to mess around manually with the exposure and the white balance. But at least you can save a custom camera. So if you go in and mess with all the settings, such as the white balance and everything else, you can save that as a custom camera, just say camera 1. And then when you go underneath this area here, you can see that my camera 1 is saved. So you can make several different presets so they're easy to access. I don't know how useful this is going to be because I would have to be in that same environment again to know that's where I'd want to use this particular preset, but you can make presets. So underneath here, not only do we have our presets, but we've also got video, so you can change it to your video mode. You've got the Zoe camera mode that we saw on the M7. We've got a selfie, which turns on the front-facing camera. We've got a dual capture mode, which uses the back camera and front-facing camera, and a pan 360. So you've got a type of a photosphere type mode. From here, we've also got easy access to our gallery. So right now, we're making sure that this is a 16:9 crop, or the native aspect of the sensor. So we're going to hit the camera button. And if you want to go in and edit the image, you can see if you tap here, you're presented with even more settings. If you go underneath the edit, you can see that we're presented with effects, filters, frames, and tools. And underneath effects, if you have a 16:9 aspect, you can do the U-focus, foregrounder, seasons, dimensions, plus. There's a lot of really cool things that you can do here. So you can see it says adjust blur level here. And to get this to work right, you need to have the image set up just so. It will tell you if the condition wasn't favorable in order to get it to work. So it doesn't really create a U-focus effect. It doesn't create a real depth of field. All it seems to do is blur out certain parts of the image. And it doesn't do such a great job sometimes because you can see that there are areas that it missed. So sometimes it does create quite a nice effect. Again, I think this is something that's really great to share with friends, something on Facebook. And I think that some people will get a lot of enjoyment out of it. But again, it's a gimmicky effect. It's not the real thing. But it definitely is fun to do. You've also got foregrounder, which will pick everything it sees in the foreground and it will shade everything else out. We've got seasons. You can see there's Sakura, there's Dandelion, There's maple leaf. You can see that it's using filtered effects and also putting little leaves in the image as well. It's really cute. I do think this is quite fun. And then you've got Dimensions Plus. It tries to make a 3D image by warping the actual image. You can see that it kind of looks like I'm looking at a 3D image. It's quite clever, but it's just distorting the image to get this effect. It's actually, I think it's actually quite convincing depending on what you're looking at. Ooh. It's pretty cool, actually. Then you've got a sticker effect, so you can put things on people's faces. That's also quite fun to do. I see teenagers having a ball with this. This is something I would have loved to have. We've got copy and paste. Copy and paste lets you copy a person from one photo and paste it into another. Copy and paste is available only for photos that have been taken with dual lens and include human faces. So that's pretty nifty. Then you've got touch up, where you can smooth out skin, you can choose the lighting, you can contour faces, you can enhance eyes, you can remove red eye, you can brighten eyes. You can also use anti-shine for those of you that have greasy faces. So what they've done here is create something very unique and very fun. Of course, you've got all the extra filters. You can mess around with frames. You've got cropping tools, draw, rotate, crop, flip, straighten. It just goes on with all the different settings that are in here. Now we can't forget to go and look at the gallery and see where a lot of the fun happens then, because there's some highlight reels. You can see we've got timeline, we've got albums. It puts everything into albums, such as camera shots, all downloads, highlights. Things from locations, if I took images by location. So I'm going to look at by date, and so you can see we've got all the little images that were taken today. And if we click on this, if we push play, it's going to make a mix by itself. It adds effects by itself. It chooses which images it wants to choose. It creates these 30 seconds long a piece, and then I can go ahead and remix it if I'd like, or I can edit things to my liking. Then of course I can choose what content appears in there. I can choose the theme. Oh yeah! I hope all this doesn't have any type of infringement attached to it. And you have the ability to choose different tracks from the music library if you'd like. So there is just a ton of settings. It's very, very, very fun. Time consuming a little bit to figure out, but to show to people it's kind of worth it, especially because I realize that many people don't know how to import footage. They don't know how to edit it on a computer. So for someone who takes a lot of photos and videos with their phone on vacation, this can come in handy, a very nice bit of handy, because it can make these montages that you really wouldn't do yourself. It takes all the guesswork and hard work out of it and just makes it fun. And of course, if you are happy with the creation, you can hit save. You can save it at 720p or high quality 720p. So just say high quality. You can name it whatever. And then it's saved on the phone, and then you can share it. So even though this camera is not the best camera, I definitely think that if you are up for some very cool features, I don't think you're going to find anything that's more cool than this. I'm sure that there is a lot more that I am missing, but I just can't cover everything. I've pretty much just showed you the highlight of what this camera is able to do. Now I want to show you some of the pictures and some of the video as well. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. taking a look underneath the full manual mode, we've got a lot of settings under here. It actually helps you choose what color temperature that you would like. If you go upward, it's warmer. If you go downward, it's cooler. So you can choose what the proper temperature would be for the white balance. Just say like that. And then you can choose the exposure. So just say somewhere like that. You can mess around with the ISO settings. You can go between 1600 all the way down to ISO 100. Then you can also mess with the shutter speed, which is actually really quite nice. So you can see that you've got 1/8000, and you can go all the way down to being a very, very slow shutter speed. Very, very fast shutter speed. Slow, fast. So that's about sane. And then we've also got the ability to mess with the focus as well, which is really nice. If I can get it. So you can go from macro focus all the way up to infinity. So just say about there, we're in focus. And then you can go ahead and snap the picture. And I find that you get pretty decent results that way. This is probably where you're going to get the best results, where you see it was taking pictures that were completely overexposing an image, underexposing an image, that were burning parts of an image. This is going to help you fix that. And then of course I can save that custom camera. So custom camera 2. So they really did put some thought into this. I just wished that their auto mode worked at all. So it all amounts to being an interesting camera for things like Instagram and Facebook. Don't get me wrong, it can take some nice pictures if you're using the manual mode, but better pictures are left up to one of the other handsets that have been released this year, unfortunately. So thank you everybody for watching. This has been Erica, the technology nerd who likes to film stuff. Please rate, comment, and subscribe. I really appreciate it when you guys come back and engage with me again. It just makes this so worth it. So all in all, this is a really, really great little phone. Please check out the first video that I made, part 1. This is only in 2 parts, so part 1 and 2. So I will put a link in the description or somewhere for you to click so you can get to that, so you can check out the rest of everything like battery life, display quality, everything else. So this has definitely turned out to be one of my favorite phones of this year. It's got tons of features and the battery actually lasts. It's super incredibly smooth, very fun to use because it is nice and smooth. I think the appearance of it is absolutely beautiful, except for it's unfortunate that it does get little nicks very easily. The speakers on the front are to die for. Also, you're able to unlock the bootloader on this thing and load a completely different type of firmware onto it. You can put the Google Play Edition on it. You're going to need to know how to do some things such as root, unlock the bootloader, get S off. You can also flash the Harman Kardon version of it. So this phone is just a major definite win. There's just so many things. It's very, very impressive, and I highly recommend it. So if you have any other questions, please leave your comments in the comment section below and I will take a look at them. I really rely on your feedback to know what you all want to see. So thank you again everyone for watching and have a good night.